Now it's 4:30 and time for Kaleidoscope, which in 1990 covered the arts from Glasgow to Moscow. Paul Vaughan reviews a year of activity.
So 1990 has come and gone. Another year in the arts of hopes thwarted or fulfilled, failures and successes, miseries and splendours. From Romania, where against the background of extraordinary political events, we reported on cultural changes, to other odder locations. Of public baths in Brentford even, where we tracked down the British premiere of a forgotten Stephen Sondheim musical, The Frogs. It's been a good year for Sondheim, what with Sunday in the Park with George and Into the Woods, but this one was Aristophanes à la mode, performed in and sometimes involuntarily under the water by actors who had to be able to swim, members of COEX, alias Community Opera Ealing Experience, directed by John Gardin.
Any production presents problems, and I've sort of got to the stage now where I don't consider them particularly unusual, they've got quite used to the idea of us being in a swimming pool and saying things like, right, this is the point where this piece of scenery floats downstage to the deep end, and can you make sure that you don't fall in at this point? Is the inflatable gorilla in the right place? Which, of course, sounds completely insane.
Almost as strange as Aristophanes in a swimming pool was the Ring of the Nibelungs in a Greater Birmingham leisure centre.
Do you know anything about Wagner?
No, I don't.
Would you like to do?
No.
Nothing's wrong with it, it's just what you like and what you don't like.
Nobody could persuade you to go over the road to the community centre and watch some Wagner?
I don't think so.
I'd like to see what it's like to go to an opera, yeah. I don't know if I could afford it, though.
It was a cut-down version put on by the City of Birmingham Touring Opera, and this time the audiences who did cross the road to see it found no difficulty understanding Wagner's labyrinthine plot.
One of the gods, the chief god, is having a castle built by two giants. In payment of that, they're going to be given the god of love, or goddess of love, and she's extremely upset about this once they finish building
and he gives in and turns Brunhilde, who's very disappointed. I think that's it in a nutshell, isn't it?
Nor was that the only theatrical quart in a pint pot. Bill Bryden's staging of his epic play, The Ship, was in a big enough theatre space, Harland and Wolff's shed on the banks of the Clyde, where every night of the run the company built and launched a large vessel. The set was The Ship, in a design by Bill Dudley, eager to catch the importance of a launch in the lives of the Clydesiders.
The ships themselves were larger than the buildings of the people that built them, and have a similar relationship to what in a medieval town would be the church spire. If you think medieval times, where faith was more profound, the energies of the town went into building a bigger building than they themselves could need or would live in. And it seemed that our auditorium should become the ship. And a tightly packed theatre community each night is in there with the actors and the real shipyard workers who have stayed on to work on in the show. And the ship, this all-pervading structure, has for the shape of our evening what I think the shipbuilding had for the shape of those communities.
You will know me by the ship's high bell, by the seas they ride. You will know me by my river. You will know me by the Clyde.
Of course, there we were in Glasgow, 1990's European City of Culture. Have Glaswegians comfortably weathered their celebrity? Looking back over the year, Robert Dawson-Scott has been talking to some working artists.
The portrait painter Alison Watt has had shows in London and Glasgow this year. She's enjoyed the activity in the city, but doesn't feel that 1990 has had much impact on her personally.
It's been a busy year for me, but whether that's got anything to do with actually Glasgow being cultural capital or not is debatable. Maybe it's had a difference to the very superficial image of Glasgow in the rest of the country and maybe the rest of Europe, but I really don't think it's affected individuals that much.
Writer and comedian Bruce Morton.
I think now there probably is, at the very least, a kind of infrastructure now where community groups, arts groups or whatever, know that there are more funding bodies available, or they know where those bodies are, where they can go and get some money, and perhaps their shows or whatever will be looked upon more favourably.
From the musical fraternity, there's a more positive reaction, perhaps reflecting the substantial growth in musical performances during the year. Ninian Perry is a freelance double bass player and a leading light with the highly respected new music group, the Paragon Ensemble.
Yes, I think it's been a really marvellous year to be able to work with people like Jesse Norman, also to be able to see the Berlin Phil come to Glasgow. That was a great moment.
The other big addition to Glasgow's musical life, of course, has been the brand new concert hall. What do you make of that?
I suppose that was an personal historic moment for me when I walked in there to do the first recording ever in the new place we did Brahms 1, and walking in there on that first morning and playing my bottom B string. God, the sound was just fantastic. It was a glorious moment for me. I thought, Glasgow has got it now.
As far as the more difficult question of what kind of legacy 1990 will leave to the city, there was cautious optimism.
It certainly has a lot of short-term effects. There's certainly been more exhibitions this year, and I think people have been producing more work for the new exhibition spaces and for extra shows which have been put on. But I honestly don't know what's going to happen in the future. I think artists who are established will carry on working, but it's hard to know whether maybe the small proportion of artists who are working solely for things during 1990 will be able to continue, will be able to sustain their work rate.
Glaswegians have a great pride about what's happening with their city, you know, and I think it's awoken a lot of potential art and music lovers.
There have been tensions between those who